Hello everyone, welcome back. This is a new lecture in your course Advanced JavaScript Programming from Adionics. My name is Ahmed, and in this section we are discussing the basic JavaScript concepts that every developer should have in his or her mind before delving into more advanced topics of JavaScript, which we will delve into later in this course. In the previous lectures, we have discussed the primitive data types in JavaScript. We have seen the number, the string, the Boolean value, and we have also had a brief look at the undefined and the null values. Now let's have a look at one of the most important and most used variable types in JavaScript, which are arrays. An array is just a group of values stored in one variable. Remember in the previous lectures, when we used the variables to store only one value and only one value type, like for example, let's say a fruit might be equal to oranges. This is just one fruit. But what if I want this fruit variable to hold more than one fruit type? Let's say I have a shopping cart that I am shopping in for fruits, and I want this shopping cart to hold all the fruits that I have purchased, just for an example, but this can only hold one type of fruits, oranges, but I want apples and bananas. So how can I do this? I can do this using an array. Just convert this to an array, and adding the s actually has nothing to do with converting the fruit variable to an array. It's just for the sake of readability. I will create a new array called fruits, and initializing the array is as simple as doing it like this. This is an empty array. The square brackets are the boundaries of an array, and inside those square brackets I can add my elements. So I can either start it like this. This is an empty array. If I type fruits, it's just an empty array. I can start filling it with values like as follows. Okay, oranges, apples, and perhaps bananas. Okay, this is my shopping cart, this is my fruits basket. Okay, as you can see here, the console is replying with the value of the fruits array after it has been initialized: oranges, apples, and bananas. So now I have my fruit basket. What if I want to access one of those elements? Actually, arrays store elements in locations. A location in an array is just the place where this array stores the value. But this place or this location starts at 0 rather than 1. So if I want to access the element number 0, which is the first element in the array, I'll use this notation: fruits, followed by the open square bracket, followed by the number of the location, followed by the closing square bracket like this. So fruits 0 will correspond to oranges. If I want to have a look at the apples, it's 1, and finally the bananas are 2. If I try to access an element that does not yet exist in the array, it will give me just undefined. This element has not yet been defined in the array. So this is how I can access an element in the array. And remember, always arrays start at 0. So if you want to access bananas, it is not fruits followed by the element number 3, because this is not the element number 3. This is the element number 2 in the array, because arrays start at 0. So always remember to subtract 1 from the length of the array. If there are 3 elements, just subtract 1 from that length. So 3 minus 1 is 2. So this is the last element in the array, which is bananas. Now, what if I want to change a value of those values of the array? What if I want to replace bananas with grapes, for example? All what I have to do is just call the array element by its location and place my desired value in its location like this. So fruits 2 is grapes. Now if I type fruits, it becomes oranges, apples, and grapes. Instead of oranges, apples, and bananas, it's oranges, apples, and grapes. You get the point? What if I want to delete or remove an element from this array? Well, this is a tricky question, because I can use the delete command like this, the delete special command in JavaScript, and I can follow it by the array followed by the location of the element I want to remove. Let's say I want to remove apples from my fruits basket. Apples is having the location of 1, so I can delete fruits followed by 1 like this, and it is giving me true, and true here means that the result of this operation is true. So let's have a look here at the fruits after it has been modified, after the apples have been removed. As you can see here, it's oranges, undefined, and grapes. This means that if I want to access the grapes element, I cannot use 1 like this as expected. It's undefined. What is expected that apples has been removed, so grapes comes into its place, so it becomes oranges followed by grapes. But actually things don't go this way in JavaScript. Things don't work this way. The delete command just keeps a hole in your array. So now it's oranges followed by undefined. It is the same location, however it does not hold apples no more. However, it's empty. You just leave it as this with the same location. The array length has not changed. The array length is still 3. It still has 3 elements starting at 0 and ending at 2. So if you want to access grapes, you will have to use its original location, which is 2. Okay? So keep in mind that the delete command will only erase the element and not completely remove it. And arrays can hold other arrays as well. So let's say, for example, that let's recreate our fruits array to get rid of that hole. It's oranges, apples, and bananas. Now, let's say that I decided to add another array that is called berries, and inside it I will have all the fruits that are related to berries, like blackberries, blueberries, okay, maybe strawberries, if that makes any sense. Okay, now here I have created a new array called berries. Now I want to add this berries array inside the fruits array. Can I do this? Yes, you can. In JavaScript, you can add arrays inside arrays. So fruits, I want to add a new element. So this element will have the number or the location of 3. Yes, that's correct. Equals berries. And as a matter of fact, I don't have to use the exact order in order to add a new value to my array. In other words, I can use fruits 5 or 6 or 10 or even 1000 in order to add my array, but that again will leave holes in your array. If I used, for example, fruits 5 and added the berries in this location, this will leave the fruits location of 3 and 4 empty and having the value of undefined, which is of course something that most people or nearly all people don't want in their arrays. They just want arrays to have values without holes. So the correct way to add it is to choose the first empty location in your array, which is location number 3, and add your value, which happens in our case to be berries array, like this. Okay, so now if I try to type the values inside the fruits array, as you can see here, it's oranges, apples, bananas, and an array of other values, which are the berries array. So how can I access the elements of those array? It is inside another array. It's a very simple operation. I will just reference the location of the array, which is 3, and then I can follow this location with another square bracket containing the location of the element inside that array. So here I'm referring to location number 3 in the fruits array, which happens to be another array. Okay, and because I'm referring to an array in itself, I can use the location 0, for example, to reference blackberries. I can also refer to blueberries and strawberries. And if I try to access a location that does not exist yet, it will give me undefined. The same thing that would happen if I try to access an undefined or a location that was not yet populated with values in the original array of fruits. Okay, so again, arrays are very important in JavaScript. In JavaScript, arrays are used extensively in nearly all your programming tasks. More often than not, you will need some array of some sort in order to complete your programming, in order to solve your programming problem. And the ability to add arrays inside arrays are very flexible, and you will find that it's very powerful in JavaScript. Last but not least, in the arrays section, is that a string in itself is an array. This is a string and also an array. Okay, yes, that's true. If I try to access B, I can access characters in the B string, in the value of the B, which is a string, the same way I access the elements of an array, just like this. So B square bracket 3, which is the letter at the location number 3 in the array, will give me S. As you can see here, I'm starting with 0, 1, 2, and 3. And the third element here, if I'm starting with 0, is S. Okay, so this way I can access elements in a string the same way as I'm access elements in an array, with some exception. A very important exception that some people forget about is that strings cannot be modified this way. You cannot modify a string the same way you modify elements of an array. So for example, if I try to change this S to be something else, let's say for example an R, that simply won't work. If you type B again, you will see that nothing has been changed. Strings, when they are used as arrays, are just used for read-only operations. You can use them just to read the characters at some location, but you cannot delete or change the letters in a string the same way you change elements in an array. Okay, well, let's start talking about the conditions in JavaScript, and let's start with the if condition. The if condition is present in all programming languages. I have never seen a programming language of any sort that does not have the if condition. The if condition is just a way to make decisions inside your code. Of course, it is very important, and no programming problem will ever go without having at least one if condition. It's just a way of organizing your code. You say that if something happened, just do this and that. If that thing didn't happen, do this and that. Okay, the syntax is very simple. It is if followed by a rounded bracket like this, if statement, condition, then followed by a curly brace, then followed by some statements, then you close the curly brace, then optionally you can add an else statement, and else here is executed only when this condition is not fulfilled. So if this condition is false, now you see the power of the Boolean values, because everything that comes after the if condition in the rounded brackets are some sort of an expression that produces a Boolean value of either true or false. Nothing else can be put here. It has to be an expression that produces, or a variable, or anything that produces a Boolean value of yes or no, true or false. Okay? And else here will get executed whenever this condition is not met. In other words, whenever this condition is false. So I can say if and another set of statements, one or more statements, then I close the curly brace finally in order to close the if condition block. Of course, this is not semantically correct. We will have an example in a moment. Let's say A equals 5 and B equals 3. Now, if A is more than B, open the curly brace, and let's say alert, and alert is just a function. We are going to study functions in the next section. A function is just a group of statements that are used collectively to execute some task, and alert is a built-in function in JavaScript that displays a pop-up dialog box in the browser, as you're going to see. Okay, so alert A is greater than B. Okay, and close it. Okay, and else alert B is greater than A, which is of course the opposite of the above condition or the above statement. And let's close the curly brace. Okay, and as soon as I press enter, the code block gets executed, and all of a sudden I have a pop-up window in my browser that reads A is greater than B. Okay, that is because I have set A to 5 and B to 3. So this is how the if condition works. This expression might be, as I said, it might be anything that produces a Boolean value of true or false. Okay, and else here is optional, as we said. You can use else if you want to, and you cannot use it. So I can write the same code here without using the else statement whatsoever. Just if A is larger than B, just print alert B, A is greater than B, and else just do nothing. If A is not greater than B, let's just change the sign. If A is not greater than B, just do nothing. I don't want you to do nothing. Just want you to check for this condition, and if it is true, do some code or execute some statements. If it didn't, just go along. Continue with your code, continue with the script that we're running as if you didn't see this code block. But sometimes you may have more than one condition to test. For example, you want to say if A is larger than B, just print A is larger than B. Else, if A equals B, let's say like here, after the else, let's have a new line here. And remember, if you are using the console with me, if you want to type the enter, if you want to hit the enter key without having the code executed, just press shift plus enter. So shift plus enter will make you have a new line in your code in the console window without executing the code that you have just entered. So this is just a way in order to add multiple lines in the same command without triggering the console to execute the commands prematurely before you finish them. Okay, so else if, this is another if condition, if A equals B. Okay, so this is another condition that I want to test for, and again I will type the open curly brace and shift enter, and then let's alert A is equal to B. Okay, and close it, and then close the curly brace again. And I can add else if as long as I want. I can add multiple else if conditions as long as my conditions are not met yet. Okay, but for the sake of this example, I'm going to write only one else if condition, and let's press enter. Okay, A is greater than B, we know that. Let's say, let's assign A to B, let's make them both equal. And now A is equal to B. If I let B equals 10 and I type this again, now, oh, I'm sorry, here I have mistyped this condition. It has to be A equals B for the equality operation, because if I kept it like this, A equals B, this means that I'm assigning A to B, which is of course not correct and will bring some unexpected behavior. But notice here that if I kept this equation as it is, A equals B, the statement will still work. That is because A equals B will yield true. As we have mentioned previously, that any operation in JavaScript has an exit status or has an output, and in this case the output of this operation is true. Yes, I have succeeded to make A equal to B. This is JavaScript saying, so the result of this operation will be true, and else if here will work. It will always be alert A is equal to B. But if I want to type it correctly, I have to say A equals B. Okay, now let's assign A to 1 again and B to 10. Okay, and if I run the code, it will be B is greater than A. So this is how I use the if conditions in order to test for multiple conditions and execute code based on this condition, whether it is true or false. And more often than not, you will want to test for the type of a variable before attempting to work with it. This will come in handy in a lot of scripts, because as developers say, JavaScript is a loosely typed language. What that means is that, as you can see, you could multiply a number with a string as long as the string is representing a number, even if it was inside double quotes or single quotes. In other languages like C, for example, this can never happen. C or C++ or Java are very strict about the type of variables they are using. If you declare a variable as a string, it will stay a string throughout the whole code, throughout the whole program, unless you explicitly convert it to a number. And if you're using a number, let's say an integer, for example, you can never convert it to a string unless you explicitly do a cast or a conversion. But in JavaScript, things are a lot loosely typed. They are a lot easier and they are a lot more flexible, but this comes at a cost because you may, for example, be working with a variable and considering that it is a string, but because of some condition in your code or because of some execution that happened, this string is now holding a number that appears to be a string. So as we said in a previous example, a equals a single code 1, 2, 3, then a single code like this. Okay, if you find this in your code, this you may be expecting that this is treated as a string, but because, as we said, JavaScript is loosely typed, it may treat this as a number depending on the operation that you are performing. And it may yield a number where you are expecting a string. So in order to be sure that the variable you are working with is the correct type and to be alerted whenever the type of the variable is not what you're expecting, you can use typeof command that we have seen in a previous lecture combined with the if condition in order to be absolutely sure that the type of variable you are expecting is that type of variable that you are requesting. So, for example, I have here a is equal to 1, 2, 3. I can say if type of a equals to string, okay, then let's say add.com to it. Let's transfer it to a domain name. It's 123.com, okay. And else, let's type and enter, and else, okay, if it is a number, let's for example multiply by 2 or any sort of operation that is intended to be run on numbers. We press enter, and because 1, 2, 3 is a string, it has been interpreted as a string and .com has been appended to it. But if I remove those codes from A and I try to run the same operation again, it will be multiplied by 2, yielding 246. Okay, so this is just an example of how the string type can be misleading, and because JavaScript is a loosely typed language, it can cause unexpected behaviors. So using the if condition with the type of command is strongly encouraged whenever you are unsure or uncertain about the type of variable you are working with. As you can see here in this example, it can also be used in order to see whether or not a variable has been initialized and declared before you can work with it. So here, if type of my name, and my name here is a variable, is not equal to undefined, which means that it is declared and initialized, let's do some code. For example, alert my name is defined. Let's work with the variable the way we want. Okay, so this is very important in order not to have unexpected bugs in your script. Trust me, those bugs are hard to find and will cost you time and effort. Now, a very handy shorthand for the if condition is called the ternary operation or the ternary if condition, and it is called ternary because it has 3 operands, not like the ordinary operators that have 2 operands at most. The ternary operator has 3 operands. So how does it work? It just starts with a question mark. Let's say, for example, in our example here, what is the value of a? Eventually it's 1, 2, 3 inside code, so it is a string. So let's say if a is more than 100, okay, and we type a question mark as if we are asking JavaScript if a is more than 100. Is it more than 100? If it is, then alert a is very large. Okay, this is a statement that we are going to execute if this expression results in a true Boolean value. Alert a is very large. So what if it isn't? What if a is not more than 100, which is not the case, but what if it is? I will type a colon, and the colon here separates the statement that will get executed when a, or when the Boolean value here is true, from the statement that will get executed when the Boolean value here is false. So what if it is not more than 100? Let's say alert a is not that large. Okay, and here the 2 statements are mandatory. The ternary operation, the ternary if condition, has to be written exactly the same way it is written, like this. The condition followed by a question mark followed by the statement, and only one statement, that will be executed when the expression is true and a colon followed by the statement that will get executed when this condition is false. You have to enter the two statements. You can't just omit one of them and say, I don't need another statement to be executed when this is false, just when we did with the if condition. If you want to do it like this, just use an if condition instead. This is just a shorthand for an if-else condition and not an if-only condition. Now let's type enter. Okay, and of course A is very large. If we assigned 90 to A, okay, A is not that large. And notice here that I have intentionally kept A inside the double quotes in order to show you how JavaScript internally converted A to be a number, and it has evaluated it with the 100 number like this. It has compared strings to numbers by converting the string to a number and comparing it to another number. So that will show you how JavaScript is loosely typed. Whenever it sees a string that looks like a number and it can convert it to a number, it will. Okay, so that's again why you should use type of command in order to make sure what type of variable you are working with. And in the next lecture, we are going to start discussing the switch statement, which is just another form of if condition that is more elegant whenever you need more conditions to work with. So see you next.